My name is Ole Dammegård. I was born in Denmark, and when I was a kid I moved to Sweden. I lived there until the year 2000, and due to my very deep investigation in the Palme assassination, I had 2 friends murdered, and then I felt threatened enough to leave the country, so I moved to Spain, and I've been living there ever since. I'm Mr. Nobody in one aspect. I'm just an ordinary guy, but I've dedicated some 30 years to find out what is actually going on, to do my part in revealing these conspiracies that are really threatening our whole civilization, because I think we all deserve a very beautiful and wonderful future. One of the things that I have focused on is over the years, I've been more and more aware of that it seems like there's some kind of connection between many of these major cases. This is something I had absolutely no idea about to start with, but it's come forward that the deeper I dig, the more I end up in the same place. And what we're talking about is a global elite it's a small group of people. They're only like 5,000-6,000 total globally, but they're behind so much mayhem about what is going on in the world today. And I would humbly suggest that I found a red thread that is connecting many of the major historical events that has been carried out, blamed on terrorists and lone crazy people. But when you see the actual evidence where it's pointing to the very same elite, and also to a small team of assassins that they worked and used since the early 1960s all the way up until today. The group I'm talking about was created under Eisenhower's regime. They were trying to get a tool together to deal with any type of problem they had globally. Whoever presidents or people or company leaders, whoever they had problems with, they wanted a tool to eliminate whoever they wanted globally. And this task was given to Vice President Richard Nixon to create a team of super assassins. Super secret, there's a lot of super here, super secret but very skilled. And Richard Nixon, he got hold of a few veterans from the CIA. We're talking about people like David Atlee Phillips, Ted Shackley, and Howard Hunt, which for anyone who knows anything about the JFK assassination, these names are very crucial in the whole thing. They were very involved in the JFK assassination, as was Operation 40. Now these 3 CIA officers went down to Miami and started recruiting exiled Cubans that had just fled from Cuba, from the Castro overtake on the island. And they were then recruited and trained under the supervision of the CIA and operatives. They were trained in Louisiana, in Florida, and in Guatemala. They were trained in everything from jungle warfare to poisoning to explosives to you name it. Then the first task they were given was to take out Fidel Castro. They failed on that, and in the meantime we had the Cuban Missile Crisis, where suddenly Kennedy, from having been somebody they could control, became a major problem. And it was almost like at the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy got a revelation saying, when he was sitting with a finger on the button that could have destroyed the whole world in a nuclear war, he came to a point where he just said he was sitting with tears in his eyes, just saying, I refuse to be the one that does this to the world. From that point on, he became a very strong and convinced individual who started going totally his own way and totally against this global elite. So there was a lot of people getting pissed off, to say the least. And so instead of focusing on Castro, they aimed this gun that they had created, this tool of death, they aimed it at him. And in Dealey Plaza on that day, many of the members of the teams that was involved, because there were multiple shooters. I can go into great details about who was there. Many of them were from Operation 40. Some of them I can go into a few details to show how these things are connected. There was one man called David Morales. He was in Operation 40. He was driving one of the escape cars. He was just below the Texas School Book Depository, picking up some of the shooters right after the incident. He was later named the top assassin of the CIA in Latin America, being part of the overtake of Salvador Allende. That was very, very much concentrated around members of Operation 40, with the backup of the CIA and Henry Kissinger, the overtake of Salvador Allende. They were also very central in the whole Operation Condor, taking out the members of the Chilean government, including Orlando Lettier in Washington, D.C. They blew him up. David Morales was also together with Felix Rodriguez, which was another member of Operation 40. They were sent down to Bolivia and tracked down Che Guevara, that was Fidel Castro's partner. They tracked him down and assassinated him. The one that ordered the kill was Felix Rodriguez. He was one of the Watergate burglars later, as were other members from Operation 40. And the one that actually killed him was David Morales. Felix Rodriguez to this very day is carrying Che Guevara's wristwatch. He's very proud of that one. Now, Felix Rodriguez was also at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles 4 years after the JFK assassination, when Robert Kennedy was killed. He was there together with 3 other CIA operatives, high level, very high level. They were there as supervisors. It was Gordon Campbell and George I can never remember this Greek name, Gionides, and then David Morales. These 3 were surveilling the whole thing when it was carried out. So that is one thing that connects just David Morales. Then you have another one when John Lennon was shot in 1980. One of the things that is connecting all of these things, the hits, are that the people that are being taken out are people that stand up for unity, peace, compassion, brotherhood, all of these beautiful things. This is a major threat to this group because their agenda is death and destruction, total control. So anyone who stands up against that is a target. You got Gandhi, Lady Diana, John Lennon, Bob Marley, many of these people, Martin Luther King, there's so many of them, Malcolm X, all of them have been standing up for the same thing, been taken out. On the night when John Lennon was killed, it was blamed on Mark Chapman. The official story is, I always come to a crime scene and I use what I call Farmer Brown's logic. 1 + 1 = 2. Does not matter if you are a professor from some fancy university and you can do it in 3D animation. If you tell me 1 + 1 = 37, I know that you are lying. And if you are lying, there's a reason why you're lying. So by backtracking these lies, that will lead me to the real truth. Okay? Because with these conspiracies, there's always a secondary conspiracy of silence. There's this official silence. It's the patsy, it's the patsy, it's the patsy, the rest, silence. At the time of John Lennon's death, he was just about to do his comeback. And he was planning a peace tour. We're back to peace again. This is a person just like Lady Diana, just like many of these other people that have been taken out. Somebody that normal people really listens to. If he says, do not go to Vietnam, people will listen. If he would say whatever in a peaceful way, they would listen, you know. So, major target. He was just about to do his comeback. He had recorded his comeback album. And this evening in December 1980, they just came back from the recording studio. You look at the crime scene. This is the official story. The limo arrives. Yoko Ono and John leaves the vehicle. Yoko Ono walks in front and John follows some 5-6 meters after him. Mark Chapman, the guy who is still in jail for this crime, was standing to the right. So John passes him, and when he's about in the middle of the entrance of the Dakota building, a series of shots are fired. John goes down, starts crawling into the building. Yoko Ono comes out screaming. The doorman rushes over, grabs the gun from Mark Chapman, screams, "Do you know what you just did? You just killed Kennedy. Oh, you just shot Lennon. You just shot Lennon." They call the ambulance, they come pick the ambulance, pick up John Lennon, takes him to the hospital, and he is announced dead. So you look at the crime scene. Mark Chapman was standing to the right, John Lennon was here. So of course, all shots fired would come from an angle behind and to the right. You look at the autopsy, all shots fired straight from the left. What does that make? Question mark. I don't think it's being a conspiracy theorist just to ask a question, who was standing to the left? Now this evening, there was a doorman, a nice looking gentleman, early 70s or something like that, glasses, a bit bald, very nice looking, nice manners and so on. His name was José Perdomo. Okay. Now José Perdomo, when you start tracking him down, I noticed him only because the very few hours after the assassination, he was mentioned with name once. Then he disappears, then he's mentioned like doorman, and then within a few hours, he's not mentioned at all. And you can also hear on YouTube, just the minutes after the shooting, there's a woman saying, he was arguing with the doorman, he was arguing with the doorman. So we look at this doorman, his name, José Perdomo. You track it back, you track it back, you track it back. And what do you find? For 10 years, he was one of the highest ranking officers of Operation 40. Go figure. Okay. You look at Dealey Plaza. In Dealey Plaza, I'll just show one connection with another assassination. When the limo, the motorcade, turns around the corner in front of the Texas School Book Depository, there is what they call the umbrella man. There's a man dressed in black with a black umbrella. Now this was a sunny day. There was sunshine, there was no rain. Why was he standing with an umbrella? And many theories have said he had like a dart gun, or it was a secret weapon inside there. Absolutely not. He was there to mark the shooting, the crossfire point, where all the shooters surrounding Dealey Plaza needed to shoot here, because we can't blame it on one guy if there's 28 shots fired within 5 seconds, you know. So everybody, when the motorcade passes, fire. The guy with the umbrella had absolutely no idea. I mean, the bullets were coming from everywhere. This is what they do, compartmentalize the thing. People are not aware of the whole picture. Okay, so you got the umbrella man. His name was Roy Hargraves, very closely associated to Operation 40. The guy in front of him, it's a dark, he looks a bit Cuban. He stands out waving like this in front of the motorcade, almost like trying to slow it down. His name, Felipe Vidal Santiago, member of Operation 40. Okay. You will see that just after the shots are being fired, he and the umbrella man sits down on the curb and rest. This man later started working under the alias of Charles Morgan. He worked for American company called ITT, which was a CIA front company. And his task was to go to different countries and recruit people locally to take part of assassinations. In 1985, in the fall of 1985, just a month coming up to the Swedish assassination of Olof Palme, Felipe Vidal Santiago, under the name of Charles Morgan, was in Stockholm trying to recruit shooters for the Palme assassination. And one of the people who was on site taking part of this assassination, his name was Michael Townley, very closely associated with Operation 40 and under the control of David Atlee Phillips, who was also the control of Lee Harvey Oswald. Lots of coincidences. We have another very peaceful person, but very, very strong individual named Bob Marley. If you think that he was just a smokehead sitting smoking dope, absolutely not true. This was a very, very bright man, very politically aware, and very much aware of what was going on. And he became a very strong symbol on Jamaica and other places where he was like a unifying icon almost. And in the 70s, the CIA was trying to take out country by country by country. They went for Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and in 75, I think it was, they targeted Jamaica. And one of the things they did was that They totally drowned the island with weapons, heavy drugs. They started all kinds of campaigns, terror campaigns. They burnt down fields, crops. They started assassinating people and so on. And one of the teams that was landed on this island under the supervision of Henry Kissinger, who was very much connected to Operation 40, was a man by the name of Luis Posada Carillas. He was present in Dealey Plaza. He was involved in, I cannot count how many terror acts over the years. I mean, these guys, it's like a dictionary of terror. In my book, Coup d'etat in Slow Motion, you can find on lightonconspiracies.com, I've got one where I describe Orlando Bosch, who was a guy in Operation 40. It's page up, page down, page up, page down, page up, page down. They've been so active. And then, once he was put in jail, he was pardoned by George Bush Sr. If you go to Miami, they have an Orlando Bosch Day. Fantastic. They got another one. They've got a statue in Miami of Nestor Izquierdo, who was the spotter in Dealey Plaza, closed. He was very closely associated with Operation 40. He's like a hero thing. Anyway, when it came to Bob Marley, the team that came to the island was led by Luis Posada Carillas. And Bob Marley had been asked, because there was total chaos, there was martial law on Jamaica, and Bob Marley had been asked to join like a peace concert there. And so he accepted to do that. But just a few days before the concert, they were rehearsing at home in Bob's house, and he and his wife and his manager were standing in the kitchen just having a coffee and so on. Suddenly the door was pulled open and shots were fired. They just filled the whole room with bullet, like going all over. His manager was hit 5 times, 4 in the stomach. Ruth Marley was hit in the back of the head, and Bob, by a miracle, the bullet just grazed his chest and lodged in his arm. But he was totally, even, I mean, everybody said, oh my God, you have to cancel a concert, they're gonna kill you, they're gonna kill you. But he showed the strength, I'm doing it, I am doing it, and he did. He stood up, everybody's just like holding their ears, they're gonna shoot, they're gonna shoot. He did it, and he managed to get the 2 political leaders on the island up on stage, shaking hands. So it was an incredible, peaceful moment in that. So he united the island. Then, just a few days later, he was approached by an American filmmaker, a documentary maker, who said, oh my God, I'm so impressed by you. Would you mind if we make a documentary about you? And Bob said, okay, fine. So they met again, and there was a man, a photographer called Lee Lu Lee, an award-winning photographer. He was there when they met, and one of the things that happened was that this filmmaker gave a pair of cowboy boots to Bob Marley. Now, Bob was really into fitness. He was very, very extremely healthy, very fit, loved jeans and boots. So he was so happy for these boots. So according to this photographer, he pulled the boot on, and when he did that, he just cried out in pain, pulled off the boot again, and inside the boot, they found a piece of copper wire that had punctured his big toe. Okay, they took it out, and it was just like, how the hell did that get there? This is the toe where Bob later developed cancer. This is the toe where it spread from, and this is the toe from where the cancer killed him indirectly. They say that it was a football accident. That was not true. The cancer was there. He was playing football some years later, and somebody stepped on his toe. It just like exploded. Yeah. There are quite a few theories that the reason why he lasted so long was because he was smoking so much marijuana and hash, because that is, when you look at it scientifically, very, very resistant against cancer cells. Okay, so the big question is, this documentary maker, who was that? Was that just some kind of neutral person? No, his name was Carl Colby. He was the son of the director of the CIA, Bill Colby. So you ask yourself, how big are the chances? I'm not saying that he knew. He might have been fooled as well. But the chances of him delivering a deadly poison to Bob Marley, Now this Carl Colby later pops up again in one of the major cases in the States, in the O.J. Simpson's case, where he was one of the vital witnesses because he was the neighbor of O.J. Simpson's wife that was brutally murdered. And his testimony and Carl's wife's as well was very, very important in the whole thing. Once again, question mark, what are the chances? If we go back in time and see who was central from day one when it came to Operation 40, it was George Bush Sr., a very young man at that time. He had been in the CIA before. He was in Dealey Plaza at the day. He was in the Dealey Plaza, the Doltex building, part when the shots were fired from that building. You can see him later on, just an hour after, he pops up everywhere. And he was the paymaster, the one that funneled the funds into this team of assassins. He then, during the decades, used these people for whatever task he wanted. So this core group had been active all the way up until today. And one of them is Porter Goss. He, in his later years, just a few years ago, was the director of the CIA, directly from Operation 40. Another member was Barry Seals, who was a pilot and he was flying one of the teams out of Dealey Plaza. He was also one of the most central pilots in the whole Iran-Contra scandal that goes into this very day in infiltrating the whole pedophile networking, drugs, weapons, oils, this whole mayhem that this group have been carrying out for decades and decades. And this is now what is being part of being revealed in England, in Sweden, in Belgium, in Italy. It's a global network of absolute awful things that are coming up to the surface. Is breaking apart now because of these incredible people's courts that have been created by international lawyer Alfred Labremont Verbré and people like him, very brave people that are putting these untouchables up against the wall saying, we have had enough. It is time to stop this madness. And I just learned yesterday that they've just started a new People's Court that will deal with 9/11 as well. These are valid verdicts that will be pushed forward in Hague and other international courts. They tried George Bush Jr., Tony Blair, Dick Cheney and other people in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, for crimes against humanity, war crimes against humanity. They tried the Queen Elizabeth II of Windsor, started this march, and the former Pope for child genocide. I mean, these are heavy accusations, and now there's a new court case starting against the crimes of 9/11, targeting the same people, the same small little group, whereof the Bilderberg group is one part.